joyful hello to all of you. My name is Minnku Buttar, founder of the Circle of Joy that brings you self-mastery programs and retreats. It gives me great joy to bring to you this season's talk show, a series of interviews on choosing joy, secrets, and stories from all over the world. It is my diligent attempt to show you that joy is not a hockey-pocky, frivolous concept, but a discipline, a way of life much needed. If you want to be resilient, radiant, and unstoppable like a runaway train. So subscribe to my channel so that you can tap into the wisdom of people from all over the world. I will see you there.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 32nd episode of this talk show, Choosing Joy, Secrets and Stories from Around the World. My name is Minnku Buttar, your host from India, and I'm going to say this, like I said in all the 31 episodes before today. Thank you for coming back to listen to these episodes and grow and heal from the wisdom of my guest speakers. And I'm in total surrender and I rejoice in all your love. But as they say, do not surrender all your love for an idea you used to have about yourself that isn't true anymore. We all evolve. And now, interestingly, my guest speaker today calls herself an ultimate joy monger. And the word surrender has also crept up in our last conversation. Now, her process that she goes with her clients, Replenish Me, helps you transmute fear, rage, and anger into joy. How beautiful is that? She's also an author of 8 books, especially the book Detached Love took the bookstores by storm. She hosts 3 podcasts with her free to be show, winning the Best Podcast Award, and she collaborates as a co-host on Unlearning Labels and the Ultimate Coach podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, today to walk the breathtaking steps of obedience, of trust, of surrender, join me to welcome my joy monger guest, Cordelia Gaffar, all the way from Washington, D.C. Welcome, dear Cordelia.
Thank you, Minnku. You make me feel like I'm actually walking down a red carpet right now. So I'm here.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that almost I had this vision of you in a beautiful, the elegant you walking with a trail behind, that goes like 12 feet.
Yes,
in
I
cars.
totally feel that.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I can totally see now with your joyful spirit, joy monger. So just to elaborate a little bit, why that name?
Yeah, well, as you explained in the introduction, what I've had to do in my life, right? And what I've had to do with my clients is help them to transmute those lower energies in the life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rage, shame, guilt, and not only see the lessons from it, but allow it to create more depth and more meaning to my life and to the life of others, and ultimately changing the collective consciousness, right? Because we often hear about fear mongering. And so I thought, well, why not joy monger? Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And just to take off from there, in our last conversation, I noticed that you do work a fair bit, like you said, with very contrasting emotions. Like you work with joy and presence, and by presence, I assume you mean just being present. Like you said, fears. You work with unsettling feelings, insecurities, and then on the other contrast, you mentioned inner compassion as a tool to embrace our inner uh, beautiful femininity. So today I want to just start this conversation, Cordelia, by asking you a very candid question, if you don't mind. So have these fears, these insecurities been part of your personal journey? Because who I see today, like this amazingly graceful, calm, composed person who could so easily take the red carpet by storm. Would you like to share a little bit about your journey? Who's made you who you are today?
Sure. Thank you for that question.
Mhm.
It is, it's the struggles that we go through that make us who we are, and it gives us grace with ourselves and with others. So for me, that journey has been rediscovering myself through writing. I What I don't want you to know about me, right, is that for 20 years I was married, and it wasn't a happy marriage. And the great part of that was a lot of times when we're married, we say, oh, it's the other person. Well, I said, well, wait a minute, what can I do? How can I be a better person? And so I started by awakening a deeper understanding of gratitude, which made me better understand, oh, gratitude is an opportunity to have compassion for myself. It's an opportunity to radiate that to all the people in my life, right? And so with that, my marriage got a little bit better, right? And then I said, oh, this feels so good. What else can I do? But ultimately, a marriage is two people doing the same work, right? And so when there comes a limit where you can't do anything more. So ultimately, my marriage did end 2 years ago. But the great news is, in all that, I researched a lot from the physical perspective. So I changed the way I ate. I got certified nutrition diploma. I changed the way I really behaved with my body, and I taught that to my 6 children.
Wow.
And I got a holistic practitioner's certification.
Wow.
Um, I studied this spiritual aspects of how to, improve your emotions and and actually embracing your emotions, the gift of them, the
Mm,
bridge that they are between our physical being and our spiritual self.
mm,
And that just opened my heart space even more. And in that uh, research, I created Replenish Me, right? And it was like a 4-year process, but that's what went into detached love, transforming your heart so that you can transform your mind, and you can see exactly that was my process.
yeah.
And all the while I was, coaching people, but in the beginning I was a health and wellness coach, so just fitness and food. But once I created Replenish Me and I understood that, then I expanded it more. So that was my process. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Replenish me. Uh, I like that. I like that, Cordelia, because it just tells you exactly what it is. We all kind of, I feel, thank you for sharing that beautiful story. And before, I want to talk a little bit more about your program and what I interpreted. Did I hear this right? You said you have 6 children,
I do, yes.
your own 6 children.
4 of them were born at home, 2 in the hospital. So yes,
Yes, I look at you and I think, 6 kids to bring up 6 kids. And that was in how many years, if you don't mind me asking?
20. Yeah.
Yes. And that itself, I think your first layer of composure and patience and jugglery comes right there. You had an amazing launching pad, if I can put it like that. But hats off to you, and really huge congratulations, Cordelia, for working on yourself and enhancing what you already knew. Because like you and I discussed, sometimes it's important to, go into a certain structure and a certain certifications. It just validates the way you want to show up and take that knowledge and wisdom you already have further. But when you say replenish me, my understanding and what comes up for me, Cordelia, is it the same thing as knowing that there is certain aspects in a person, especially women, that's been draining. Uh, you get depleted, right? So what is it, do you think, that you come across your clients that needs replenishing? What is it that you're working on? What are the core fundamental voids, if I can put it like that?
It's very individual. The great news is a lot of the women I work with are leaders. They're like executives in major corporations.
Right.
And, generally, unlike me, they have healthy marriages already. However, they have this insecurity with how they should show up as a leader, right? They don't want to be too masculine. They don't want to be too feminine, right? So that's where the depletion is for my clients usually. And so in this case, it's more of the piece where I was talking about the emotions, right? Tapping into being a compassionate leader and not being diminished as just a woman, you see? So, and showing up very in their depth of expertise, right? For what they're actually there for, their actual role and beyond, and showing up as that visionary.
Yeah.
So the steps of Replenish Me just, I actually, I'm retracting that statement. It's not about the steps. It's about what it is that's required for that particular individual, whatever it is. Yeah, whatever their journey is. So.
Right. Do you want to touch upon a little bit, just to give our listeners a little bit of taste of, say, for example, I come to you and what is it? How do you lead? Do you have what does this journey look like for someone? How would you explain it? Are you looking at you're looking at their growth, right? Because I know that it's very challenging for uh, empowerment as such. We've always talked about gender inequalities. Is that something that comes up a big time for you, gender stereotypes?
I'm pausing because it does, but not in the way that it's normally talked about. So I'll give you an example. It's easy with stories. Yeah. So I have a client who is a new executive. And in her case, it's more about speaking up in the moment and not doubting, right? And embracing that emotion, like I was talking about. So when we started working together, she'd show up in her peer leadership meetings and she wouldn't speak much. And it was because she didn't want to be perceived as overbearing or, an angry Black woman, because that's the thing. And so there's two things going on there, right? It's not just that she's a woman, but then it's also looking at the way she, that she's Black. And so I asked her, I'm like, so what is it that you didn't say that you wanted to say? And so when she shared, I said, well, what would be the harm in actually just speaking on the topic, in your full expertise, why don't you experiment with that? And so then the next opportunity, she did. And she got backlash, interestingly enough, from a woman, right? So when she came back to me with that, she was like, but I didn't say anything this time because it was another woman. And I said, okay. what if you experiment it with, it sounded like in that particular situation, the other woman was micromanaging and like really just nitpicking, right? And almost trying to poke holes in her expertise. And I said, okay, so what are you really hearing? What is it why is she nitpicking your expertise? And it's more about the other woman's insecurity in her position,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I said, so what would you do to make her feel more comfortable? And she says, first of all, she didn't even notice that was the underlying thing, right? So she went the next meeting, she went in, and it was like, she came in letting her know, not to worry about the things that she had brought up in the previous meeting. And this is the plan going forward. And she had an idea of how they could work together and bridge that gap, right? So now the next session we talked, and she said, okay, so now that's solved and she's less insecure and, we've bridged the gap. So it's, if you hear what I'm saying, it's about really learning how to hear, connect the dots, connect the hearts, and everyone honoring each other's expertise.
That's
see?
Beautiful. That's powerful. I think what's coming up for me, Cordelia, is strengthening of voice. I think communication done rightly will resolve and dissolve almost all conflicts. I think it's a beautiful way of conflict resolution. That's beautiful. And I love it, Cordelia, because I hear that patience and I hear that love in your voice. I could almost hear you recounting the story. I could almost hear the tone in which you probably talked to her, which is kind of very reassuring, and that's amazing. The other thing that you and I have always found an integral part of your life and mine, do you remember what's coming up for me is also the other side of conflict and struggle is surrender. You remember how we talked about that so much, and you, from what I understand, have called it the ultimate sacred thinking, which is like amazing. Sacred. The minute you call something so sacred, it's sacred. I mean, beyond anything, it's unquestionable. But for me, I call it a leap of faith. I don't know if you can relate to that. And so
I can.
And before we go into this discussion, I just want to say this, and I just see if you are on the same page, and also for the benefit of our listeners. I think I want to mention that when we talk about surrender, I, at least from my aspect, I talk about allowing for the relinquishing the control to the unseen hand with grace. And a lot of people, when they talk about surrender, they confuse it with giving up, if you know what I mean. Or throwing the towel in and surrendering to consequences. But I think you and I, we talk about surrender to the unseen hand. What is your interpretation in your world for surrender, Cordelia? I'm really curious to know.
Yeah, it's basically like you said. What I said yesterday on the Free to Be show was that it's allowing yourself to be a conduit for the divine, right? And you can see that as a through thread in our conversation, right? I was married for 20 years and I worked hard on myself, but ultimately I surrendered to it's not meant to be for us forever, right? When I talk about my client, she ultimately surrendered to connecting with the heart of that person by listening, the deep listening, right? And even yesterday on my show, I was supposed to have 2 guests, but only one showed up and she had technical difficulties. So, in that case, it was like surrendering to like technology and still being fully present.
Yes. And surrendering to the fact that it was your voice mainly that's going to be heard on that show. I think surrender is beautiful. And it is a leap of faith. I think sometime or the other, Cordelia, I think we've all taken it. When times are tough or they're confusing, or maybe there's a decision, like you said, you walk this path, a decision that needs courage, it needs boldness. I think when you, in spite of that, you have to take decisions and you do this leap of faith and you surrender to the unseen hand. I think it's beautiful. And there's one saying, and I'm not sure who said this. They say, just as water is always seeking the lowest place, and similarly, God, or, this source, as we call it, when he sees an empty heart, that's where his glory and power flow in. And that is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with this idea of a leap of faith, and it does really take courage, right? When you think about, you're literally leaping from what you know to what you don't know, and knowing that source divine is, going to carry you to the other place, whatever that is, wherever that is, and however it happens. And it's in that lift, right, to the other side, that the surrender gives you, I wouldn't even say wings, but it gives you a joy bubble to transport yourself in,
Yes, it's like any of those fairy tales that you see. You have this nice little rainbow-filled bubble
Yes.
and you're just like a little elf and a fairy, and you're carried through. And also, Cordelia, do you notice how? And I'm feeling this love right now. I mean, I've got goose pimples. It's I think the art of surrender, it's an art. It's an art. Because you've really got to kind of accept and move with the flow and say, yes, I surrender to the consequences. And isn't it incredible how the hardest things start to seem easy, and in the most bitter things seem sweeter, because you are in a restful state. You're not struggling. You're not trying to swim against the flow of the river.
Exactly.
And I think it's beautiful. So if you're using that, Cordelia, and this beautiful work that you do with compassion and the corporate world, bringing women into a world of, empowerment, I think it's beautiful, giving them voice. Also, what if something else comes to my mind, and I want to see your views on this? What if we showed up the way, if we change the way we show up? What if we surrendered and invited? Let me go take it a notch up. What if we invited the higher source to fulfill his purposes through us?
Yep, exactly.
Right? How would that change? And I think this is a question I'm throwing out to the universe with you today. How would that then change our thoughts, our actions? How would that change the way we jump out of bed every morning?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you allow yourself to be that conduit for the divine, it gives you lift. Like, you're not attached to anything, right? Detached love. You are fully aligned in your purpose, and you can just, I'm going to select an overused word, but it's appropriate here. You can authentically be you. And each one of us is a blue ocean. This came up in a session with another client, there's something really on her heart, and I feel that it's her purpose to talk about this thing. And I said, okay, so your assignment is to write this article, right?
Right.
And express this new blue ocean idea, and allow that to come through you, because that is how we change the collective consciousness. We have to allow our consciousness to rise and meet with others, right? And so, it sounds cute and a little bit childlike, and that's okay to say that we're in a joy bubble. But think about a human body literally being transported in a bubble. What does that require for your cells, your individual cells? They have to have, you have to just allow them to be. That's what we are. It's just light. We actually are light, right? It's only when we attach to an idea that either makes us heavy or it allows us to lift more. So that's what we're talking about.
That's beautiful. That is such a beautiful explanation. And I think, Cordelia, the reason why we are also so troubled, right? So some of the baggage that we carry with us, right? In fact, in my TEDx talk, that's what it was. I said, how do you drop that baggage? That's all we need to do. We're carrying such unnecessary baggages, and that's going to make it difficult to be in that bubble, right?
There's no lifts. You cannot take luggage.
I also always use another example. It's like we are in a fast train and we have a destination, and what's the point of sitting in a fast train that's probably going to get you to your destination, but instead of putting your bag and suitcase down, you're holding it on your head and sitting in a train that's going to get you there anyway, right?
Right.
It's funny. So I think when we start, this is the thing. I think when we humans, you, I, anyone, we start to think we are in control and we start to give orders to our subconscious, I think we also interfere with the work that needs to be done through you. But like you said beautifully, that when you surrender, I think also our instinct, Cordelia, to grumble, to complain, I don't think a day is a chore anymore, because you know that the work is being done through you. Oh, wow. Cordelia, thank you so much. And what I loved about you from the first time, we had a conversation, is your absolutely gentle approach, but there's steel in what you say. So love you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. And I do want to speak on that for a moment, because, a lot of people misinterpret, right? Softness and gentleness for weakness.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
it's the ultimate power,
It is.
right? Because think about it, water flows every day, like streams flow, and they change the contour of the earth. And that's what it is to be a woman,
And
authentically.
so beautiful. And the river waits for the stream, right?
Mhm.
It needs this gentle streams flowing into it to complete it. I see that in your gentle approach. So thank you for authentically being you, Cordelia, and bringing and replenishing all that needs to happen for a woman to feel and come into our own. Thank you. And with this, if you are ready, we go into the rapid fire round of our talk
Okay.
show. And
Yay!
yay, yes, any opportunity to be joyful. And I always say this, that a lot of talk show hosts, they're just so serene and they're like, oh, so proper. And I go like, oh my God, throw that abandon and in be liberated and have a conversation that brings value to our audience. So I love a lot of joy, and that's why it's a pleasure to have you here today. So let's just ring into the rapid fire. So it's usually one word, one sentence for them. So if you're ready, should we go with the first one?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that never fails to bring a smile on your lips.
Dancing.
Ooh, and we didn't know that. And what genre of dancing, what kind of dancing would that be?
Oh, soca dancing, from like calypso. Mhm.
Oh my God, I absolutely am doing another Zoom session with you very soon. Tell me what shoes to bring, and we're going to do this dance.
Who needs shoes?
Oh, seriously? Okay, fantastic. Tell me what attire, how short a skirt, what do I need to wear? Okay, this is fantastic. I'm loving this. One extreme fear of yours that still lingers, Cordelia.
That I'll miss the opportunity to show up as myself.
Thank you for sharing and, being vulnerable and raw. That takes courage. Uh, tell us something no one in our audience knows about you, and it's not your dancing skills, obviously. Anyway.
um, I almost I had a cancer scare recently. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. And you are good now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Praise to the Lord always. When you come out on the other side, yeah, I think these things are something that the body is trying to tell you always. Okay, so now we talked about the bubble, we talked about the fairies. Now imagine, Cordelia, that you have been handed the magic wand. What magic would you want to spin?
Mm. That everyone actually shows up as themselves.
Oh, so authenticity is so, so huge for you, and so it should be. Thank you for that. Well, Cordelia, that was it. It's a wrap.
That's it? Oh my goodness. That was really quick.
Were you waiting like at the edge of your seat for some?
Yes, I really was. I was like,
Okay. I shall be better prepared next time and really, really seek all these skeletons from you. I was just being kind. We'll
thank
do
you.
that offline, Cordelia.
Okay.
So how do you feel being here? Have you had fun?
I really have. It's always a pleasure and a joy to be with you, Minnku. Even the times that we haven't been in Zoom, like just exchanging, messages with you is really a joy. I like your light energy, and I love to celebrate your recent TED Talk and everything that you're bringing into the world. So
Thank you, Cordelia. Thank you. Absolutely. And welcome to the sisterhood that we all have. It's so beautiful to be connected through your wisdom and my guest speakers. So, where can people find you? If someone, saw a lot of wisdom and they wanted to seek a little bit more of your wisdom, where would they find you?
ooh, well, there are two places. I have a
Mhm.
YouTube channel,
Right.
and it's actually my name.
Okay.
And then I have a lot of fun and spin a lot of wisdom into my fun on my Instagram, which is also my name, Cordelia Gaffar. So I do reels, right?
Oh,
And I use specific songs, of course, soca, and
lovely.
and so you'll find those are two places. And I also I say that IG is where I hang out with people. So
Yeah.
if you want to send me a DM, that's neat.
Fantastic. I'm looking you right up after this show. So join me to wish our beautiful global listeners a journey of love, light, and joy and surrender. And to all you beautiful global listeners, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, do so. And bye for now. And Cordelia
Bye for
joins
now.
me in say bye. And Thank you so much for your unconditional support and love that I keep receiving. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you.